Hey guys, welcome back to Warhammer 40k, a universe so dark that coming out about your problems is usually a bad idea. Today, we are talking about the First Legion, the Dark Angels. But before we get into the lore, a little disclaimer about Space Marines. Space Marines have by far the largest representation in all of Warhammer, but different chapters get different amounts. We won't give chapters like the Imperial Fists, Salamanders, and others from Vanilla Codex Space Marines their own video because they don't have enough to justify a 10-minute video on their own. So, all these vanilla chapters will be lumped into one video down the road, while Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Death Watch, and Grey Knights will get their own standalone videos. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk lore. The Dark Angels were literally the first Space Marine Legion ever created during the unification of Terra 10,000 years ago. They would be given some of the best armor and technology, and would be assigned to some of the most disturbing battlefields to fight upon. It was a great honor for the Legion, but it kept the Legion extremely busy, jumping from one conflict to the next with very little breaks. During the Great Crusade, however, they would find the planet of Caliban, a feudal world that was run by ancient knight orders. Here, they would find their Primarch, Lionel Johnson. When Lionel took command of the Legion's personality would change. Lionel would drive them to catch up with the victories of other legions, while also accepting the new recruits from Caliban, who were more glory-hungry and reckless than their Terran Astartes brothers. Not to mention dealing with a Primarch who, although Lionel was a brilliant strategist and was probably the greatest swordsman among his brothers, he was very uncharismatic and a paranoid individual to boot, actively distrustful of everyone outside of the Emperor. So much so that after Lionel's right-hand man Luther, the man who raised him and trained him from his teenage years, wavered in his duty once due to jealousy, he was banished from the Legion back to Caliban. Sort of sets the mood home, doesn't it? Then, the Horus Heresy would break out, and Lionel and his Legion would side with the Imperium. No, they aren't closet traitors, the meme isn't funny anymore, let it die! But they totally are in the closet. The Dark Angels would come out of the Horus Heresy more intact than other legions, but what would break the Legion was the return home to Caliban. In the absence of Lionel's command structure, Luther had corrupted the newer generations of Dark Angels and had taken over Caliban's defenses to fire upon the returning Dark Angels fleet. The Dark Angels and Lionel would launch into a frenzied extermination campaign, breaking Caliban apart with just pure weight of orbital fire while dropping troops into each fortress on Caliban to dig the traitors out. While that was happening, Lionel would fight his former father figure and best friend, Luther. Luther would defeat an exhausted and grieving Lionel and would collapse himself, realizing the horror he wrought and begging the Lion for forgiveness. Then, Caliban exploded. A rift in space and time pulled the traitor Dark Angels through itself, leaving the Dark Angels with no homeworld. However, a fragment of their world survived, known as the Rock, where they built their fortress. There, they found Luther, who had mentally snapped and would say that Lionel was taken and that when he returns, he would forgive Luther for the heresy. Now, 10,000 years later, the Dark Angels have become the worst aspects of their gene fodder, paranoid and secretive to extreme degrees as they hunt down the fallen. But, with the return of Lionel Johnson, who has learned from his mistakes in the past, and with the Primarch redeeming some of the fallen Dark Angels, the Dark Angels themselves may be on a road to finally forgiving themselves, and maybe, just maybe, they will come out of the closet. Okay, enough of this heavily abridged lore, let's get into the army.
This is Grandmaster Belial, addressing all warriors of the First Company.
The Dark Angels are characterized by being an uncompromising and grim army. Their ability, Grim Resolve, makes them an army that will never buckle under pressure. With Grim Resolve, if a unit fails a morale check, their objective control value only drops to 1 rather than 0 like usual. This makes them the Marine army that will hold the line no matter what is thrown at them. But let's focus now on what makes the Dark Angels their own thing. The different wings of war.
Rule number 1, never trust anybody.
The Green Wing is the regular Marines from Codex Space Marines. Think of the Dark Angels Codex like DLC. They get access to all the original Space Marines, but also get sole access to their specific elite units, such as the Raven Wing and Death Wing. We will go over the basic Marines in a later video. The Raven Wing is the special fast attack forces of the Dark Angels, focusing on rapid pinpoint hit and run attacks. Units in the Raven Wing range between bikers, speeders, fighters, and bombers. The biker units are equipped with weapons that can harass enemy units and do some damage, taking your opponent's attention away from your heavy-hitting land speeder vengeance. The land speeder is a form of light vehicle that is focused on being a heavy hitter rather than being a harassment unit like in the regular book. If you want to support your bikes more, though, you can bring the Dark Shroud, a vehicle focused solely on giving cover to your bikes. Then there's the Strike Fighters. They are your unique flying units in the Dark Angels. The Nephilim are basically your anti-vehicle plane, loving to hunt your opponent's armored units, while the Dark Talon is focused on bombing the ever-loving shit out of infantry. Now, we get to the unique leader for the Raven Wing, Samael.
He's forklift certified!
The Dark Angels currently have 7 unique characters. Samael is the leader of the Raven Wing, and is the guy who was given the special gravity bike. Yes, you are a special little guy, aren't you? You can put him inside a bike squad, and if you do so, you get an extremely good unit that hunts and runs down enemy units, with an ability that lets you advance and charge in the same turn. You can drag practically any unit into close combat, while also making sure they can't escape him and his biker gang. With a decent melee attack and a scary as hell ranged attack, Samael is always a must-take if you're going pure Raven Wing.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
Now, let's talk about the main reason why people play Dark Angels. The Terminators. That's right, the Deathwing are the heavy armored elite of the Dark Angels, and are some of the best Terminators in all of Warhammer. The Deathwing are focused on either driving your opponent's units away from your line, puppy guarding characters, or just teleporting in and caging your opponent's army while beating them down with maces. Deathwing Terminators come in 3 variants: the Command Squad, which are used only as bodyguards for your characters, the regular Terminators, who are unaffected by any debuffs your opponent tries to throw on them, while also getting buffed by Grim Resolve, and then there's the Deathwing Knights, the close quarters killers who love absorbing damage and dishing out the same punishment. These guys are some of the best elites in 40k, but as of 10th edition, let's talk about their disappointment of a leader, Belial.
Boo, you suck!
Belial has been a scary character for years. He is supposed to be a missile that hunts characters, singles them out, and tears into them easily. But with 10th edition, it's clear the guy just isn't that good anymore. He gives a unit he joins the ability to target characters, and gives you a potential pool of 6 mortal wounds. My god, he spoils us with his exquisite swordsman skill. The guy is just poor compared to other characters in your army. Compare him to the Deathwing Strike Master, who you can customize and gives the squad he joins the ability to auto-wound units. And the disappointment sets in. When your subordinate is better than you, you have done something wrong. Take him if you want to have the flavor of Deathwing, but don't expect him to do much.
FBI, open up!
So, each chapter has unique spellcasters, priests, and captains, along with their chapter master. For Dark Angels, those units are Ezekiel, a character hunting spellcaster who really hates chaos, Asmodai, a character hunting chaplain who rewards players for using him in melee with free rerolls for his unit. Captain Lazarus, who's a guy who likes hunting down magic characters, which makes him extremely niche in this edition. And then we get to Azrael, the dry-humored, sarcastic ass of chapter masters. Azrael is characterized as being someone you build the army around, who babysits a unit you want to survive with his special ability, the Lion's Helm. The helmet gives a 4+ invulnerable save to his unit. Usually this means slapping him into a Hellblaster unit, abusing his sustained hits ability, and laughing as your opponent tries to get rid of him and his best friends. But that is only 6 of 7. Now, we move on to probably the best Primarch in 40k right now.
It's all boy!
Lion L. Johnson. Where Gulliman is the statesman who supports his army from the back, Lionel Johnson is the knight who leads from the front and will kill anything he touches. With his abilities focusing on either making his army hit better or protecting them from extreme damage, you get a character who can teleport onto the field, always fights first, and reduces damage he takes with his shield while also sending enemy damage back. The man looks at any unit in Warhammer ranging from the smallest Gaunt to the largest knight, calls them a bitch, and leaves them either crippled or just straight up dead. All in one melee combat. Lionel Johnson is the new Primarch in Warhammer 40k, and it really does show. He outshines the Demon Primarchs and Gulliman easily. If you can get your hands on this beautiful model, you will never be disappointed with him. And that's the Dark Angels, a force that will hold the line no matter what, with some focus on character hunting. The beauty of the Dark Angels is that you can take a mix of the different wings and they all support one another. You can take a mix of all 3, or just 2, or go pure. Use your Raven Wing to corral your opponents so your Death Wing has an easier time getting stuck into melee. Use your Green Wing to soften enemy units up so the Raven Wing can go after far more dangerous targets without worry. Or take all 3 and have a synergized army that supports holding the line at all costs. With one of the best Primarchs in game and an army that rewards experimentation with army building, you should have an extremely fun time. Thanks for watching, and when we come back... Wait.